In August 2016 I visited Myanmar on a short holiday, and I visited 3 places: Yangon, Bagan and Mandalay. And if you have a look at this and pause this, you'll read the story about Myanmar, and formerly known as Burma. I went to the Myanmar embassy in Bangkok and got my visa, and then the next day I flew on Yangon Airways to the city of Yangon. Yangon was formerly known as Rangoon under the British rule, and we've got a lot of British architecture in the colonial period, and also Buddhist temples and such. I stayed at a little hostel called Little Yangon Hostel, and it was quite comfortable, so I had to walk up a steep staircase, and at my age that's a bit harder. And this is the little cubicle that I slept in, and I had storage for clothing and such. Here's a street shot of the Little Yangon Hostel. While I was there, I tried a lot of the local food, and this one's a Myanmar Mohinga dish, and it was quite tasty. I started my walking tour of the city by visiting the City Hall and the surrounding areas, and if you notice it has large open streets, but the side streets are fairly tight and small. I visited the Botataung Pagoda while I was walking towards the river, and it was a very small and colourful place. I didn't go in because the prices on the notice board were Europeans were much more expensive than the locals, and at that stage I wasn't aware of the difference in monies. I took offence to the higher price, but here's a street view of the pagoda. Then I walked to the riverfront area to catch a little taxi boat across to the island, which I read about in the brochure, and I come across all this rubbish and plastic that we all know is polluting the world, and we really need to do something about it and put it in the bin. And you can see it's low tide, and there's a fair amount of tourists and locals waiting to catch these little taxi boats across to the island in the middle of the river. They wanted 100 of their local money for the local people, but they wanted 1,000 of their local money for Europeans, so I took offence to that. As you can see, the little taxi boat that takes people across to that island way back in the distance there. Continuing my walk, I came across the Emmanuel Baptist Church, built in 1885 by an American missionary, and it was quite beautiful, and the old colonial style, I suppose, near the City Hall and the car park. And across the road from these things was the local park. There was some kind of celebration going on in the Bahan Park, which is in the centre of the township, and I just walked around the outside. I couldn't be bothered walking into the steeple or tower in the middle. Then I visited this Golden Pagoda with its tall stupa structure, and that's what they call these domes pointing to the sky, and lots of gold colours and all religious icons that make it so beautiful to visit. Pagodas all over Asia. They spend a lot of money making them look good for the people, and I suppose for the tourist attraction, so that they can get you to put some money in their little collection tin to keep things going. You can notice that there was a green mat, and I quickly worked out that the green mat all around the area was mainly for the rain, so that you wouldn't slip over on the smooth, shiny marble floors, if you call them that. And then there was a seating area that I visited. I didn't go in there, but people were in there praying and chanting. So then I visited the Shwedagon Pagoda, which is made up of a number of pagodas or stupas, and they were renovating it. It was circular in shape, and you could walk around the outside to a certain point, and there was people selling foods and incense and all sorts of religious icons. But you'll see there's a whole heap of these stupas sticking into the air. I never did find out what these little small buildings that were whitewashed and also gilded in gold. I didn't know the purpose of the little ones, but the bigger ones obviously were different prayer temples, pagodas, and they've got a whole heap of gods that they worship. You see the bloke in the foreground, well, he was a retired English teacher, professor, and he actually offered to show me around the town, so I took that up and I gave him a tip at the end of it, and he was grateful. But I'm sure he would have done it for nothing, just to practice his English with a foreigner. So here are these whitewashed ones, and while I was taking the video, he would sit down often. So we continue to walk around this absolutely huge mixture of pagodas. This pagoda complex was absolutely clean, with little ladies and brooms sweeping up all the dust and dirt. As far as the eye could see, you could see these gilded gold stupas, both small and big, probably mausoleums. I've forgotten what I was told about them. And then there was a few modern pagodas, and the one we're walking past now is one of the modern ones. You'll notice a change in design of the pagodas and worship temples, and here's an example of the change in design. You'll notice people sitting around the diamond star on the marble and the surrounding pagoda, so it must have been the centre of the whole pagoda area. And then we visited the Chaukhtatgyi Buddha Temple, and one of the most well-known reclining Buddhas in the country. And he definitely had big feet. There's so much to understand about these religions that I couldn't absorb it all. It's been a while. But I understand that there's up to 12 or more gods, and this mural depicted the Buddha's story, and if you slowly walked along, it tried to tell you the story about Buddha. And here's Buddha in the reclined position with gilded gold. Next time I'm in a Buddhist temple, I'm going to ask why they make Buddha have white makeup and lipstick and eyebrows, painted eyebrows. There's got to be a reason for it. After the tour guide left me, I visited the Yangon Circular Railway and went for a ride around on the train. It's not a boat, it's just heavy flooding. You'll see that it's an open plan with lots of people in it, but later on in the trip, the train filled up with farmers and produce and chickens and caged birds. You'll notice the small gauge of the railway tracks. I don't know why there was two of them. The next video shows a low-lying bridge, only tall enough for cars and small vans, no trucks. And I wondered why the raised railway line, and I think it's because of the tendency to flood. Here's the example of the farmers got on board, market people or such, and filled up the carriage with farm produce and birds and chickens in cages, and I think they were going to the market. Now, stupid me, I thought the train only went one way, but you can see that there's a train going the opposite way on this circular railway. I took a video of the map of the Yangon Circular Railway, and I was surprised how many stops there was. But the moment the train went past, the people crossed over. There was no boom gates or anything like that, you just had to take care. And here's a photograph of the locals sitting waiting for the train going the other way. And here's a photograph of the main railway station with a few foreign tourists. And as I walked over the walkway, I took an image of the old trains. Then I visited the National League of Democracy office on Aung San Suu Kyi. At the time, I think was Prime Minister, but since then she was arrested in 2021 and sentenced to corruption and other charges for, I've forgotten, 4 or 8 years jail. The world objected to it, but the military government that staged a coup d'etat just ignored all that. I went for a ride on one of these rickshaws, and it was quite enjoyable, but unfortunately I'm a big bloke and I didn't fit. Likewise with these small buses that you have to hail down, I didn't fit too well in them. I actually stood on the running rail until I was told to get inside. Then I went back to the hostel, and there's a lot of people that chew this betel nut, which makes their mouth all red, and they spit it on the ground and it looks like somebody been run over, blood everywhere, but it's actually betel juice from the chewing of the sort of like tobacco. The video was produced by myself, and it's the end of another exciting video of my short stay in Yangon in Myanmar in August 2016.